slowly and make just a salawat before you start.
Okay, say salam. No, I do it. Yes, you can do it. Sit down. Sit down. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Salawat! Surah Ma'un. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين فذلك الذي يدعو اليتيم ولا يحض على طعام المسكين فويل للمسكين الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون الذين هم يراءون ويمنعون الماعون. Okay. Have you seen the one who denies the judgment? For that is the one who drives away the orphan and does not encourage the feeding of the poor. So woe those who pray, but who are heedless of their prayer, those who make show of their deeds and withhold simple assistance. We have chose this surah as it teaches us important messages for this holy month. In Ramadan, and especially the night of Qadr, we learn about the importance of good deeds and charity. This surah teaches us that even small deeds of charity can go a long way. The surah also teaches us about the importance and our intention of praying just to Allah and not to show off to others. Imam Ali alayhi salam, who we remember tonight, is a true example of an amazing person who taught us the important messages of charity, prayer and being humble. Salawat.
About the loss of their benefactor.
Oh brother, hunger and thirst stifle my very being. 3 days have passed, and no inquiry about her well-being.
My sister, loneliness grips me, and without me, we have no one, and he used to make us forget our strife.
I remember when we first came here as orphans, homeless. He came that first night and told us never to be hopeless.
We thought we were alone, but he quickly took us into his embrace. He said within his heart and soul was our safe and rightful place.
At the same time, in the darkness of night, we would hear him coming. His very presence would mend my broken heart and get my soul humming.
On his back, for all of us, would be sacks of bread, water, and dates. But what was special is he'd sit and eat with us as if we were mates.
Forget all our woes and loneliness, he'd make us with his affection. His hand upon our heads removed all the feelings of dejection.
When we'd ask him who he was and why he cared about us so much, he said, "You are the light of my eyes and Almighty God's very touch."
3 days now, my brother, and I've been waiting for a bright morning. The sun has left our lives, my brother, without even a warning.
Wait, I hear footsteps. Can it be that our father has arrived, the one of whose company and love these days we have been deprived?
It's someone, but it isn't him. Who are you? What's your work with us? We are orphans, alone, hungry, and about whom none makes a fuss.
Yes, please, leave us, for we have nothing to you we can give, for our provisions come from our friend, who helps us to live.
He has not come now for 3 days, and we are defenseless. Without his love, kindness, and attention, we are in distress.
My dears, come with us so that we may grant you your need. Your benefactor has now succumbed to what was decreed. Like you, he was a father to many orphans and destitute within this locality. He was the master of faith and the pillar of divine morality. But alas, he has passed into the realm of the immaterial, and like you, we are now orphans left to fend in the material. I am Hassan, this is my brother Hussein, and under our care you will be. Together we will comfort each other, for we all now have become the orphans of Ali.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, all of you. Wonderful to have such a crowd here and a growing crowd. So on that note, as I said, it's a growing crowd. We're expecting quite a few people. So as usual, if I can request all of you to come as far forward as possible, then inshallah the latecomers can trickle into the back without disturbing the program, please. With a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you so much for moving forward. Sorry for the inconvenience there. The second announcement, which I have to make, unfortunately, because it was made already, but some people seem to be adamant on not adhering to that rule. And it's already mentioned outside, it's stuck on outside, it's labeled quite clearly. Food and drink of any kind is not permitted in this chapel hall, except for water, plain water, not juice, water which is contained in closed bottles or flasks, apart from, because you need to stay hydrated maybe after iftar time. Apart from that, no crisps, no popcorn, none of that is permitted within the chapel. If you have small children who get restless and who need something to snack on, the conference room is available. Please take your children into there, and the program will be relayed from here into there. So of course that announcement is for everyone, but particularly focused on those who have small children, because they tend to bring snacks and crisps into this hall. Food and drink of any type is not permitted in the chapel. Inshallah, I'll reiterate, and I might have to reiterate this announcement after the Isha prayer when we resume the program again. Was there anything else? No? Great. So inshallah, with that, it gives me great pleasure once again to invite Shaykh Arif to the front for his third in the 3 lecture series on Imam Ali alayhi salam and spirituality. With a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Thank you. Rahmallah man qara al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So we stated that spirituality is the embracing of our divine light that is within us. But more than that, it is to allow that light to emerge unhindered and to reach the culmination of its own self. So with a bit of a recap, you see, what we don't understand is that we are the greatest obstacle in our journey to God. Now, something has happened before we come here. There's a reason why we are in this constitution. There's a reason why we are being challenged in the way we are being challenged. Now, our challenges are all reducible to this human condition of ours, which in fact is alien to our true nature. But at the same time, it's a great opportunity for us to culminate in the greatest glory possible. But for that, we need to have deep insights as to what is really going on here. Now, when we suffer, what is really suffering? Is it the body suffering or is it the inner being suffering? We will see very accurately it's not the body that is suffering, but it is the interaction of the inner being with whatever is happening with the body that is in a state of toil and suffer. And we actually have the propensity of magnifying the suffering. The body might experience danger or pain, but the mind, through its imaginative ability, compounds this danger and this pain to a level unimaginable. And then it suffers as a result of that. Now imagine, if I were to know that I'm not this body, and then the body feels pain, my attitude would be one of someone who is at a distance from the body. I will say the body is feeling pain. I am not pained. At that point, suffering will become reduced. Because the suffering is a psychological condition. Pain, although it's a psychological condition, but it has a physical medium. Now, let's look at more subtle suffering. When people offend us, it pains us deep within our heart. Now, if we were to know that we are not beholden to people and what they say, then that suffering will also not be there, or we will be able to reduce it. Similarly, expectations and failures of expectations, all of these are causing inner suffering. Same is the case with fear. You see, if we were to be able to disassociate in our minds with our bodies, and bodily feelings or feelings generated, emotions generated through the body and the bodily, imagine if we can disassociate from that, fear would go. Why are we afraid? Because there's an inbuilt mechanism within the body that wants to protect it and wants to cause its survival. Now, if I were to know that I am not the body, and in fact, at this age now, no one knows better than me. I'm sounding like Trump now, aren't I? No one knows better than people at my age now, I'll just modify that we are not our bodies. Because if we were, they wouldn't be withering away whilst we are still talking. Can you not see that? So the protection of the body, if we can disassociate with it, then the fear goes with it. Why do you think we are afraid of hell? because it's a bodily torment. And psychologically, it torments us because we have no control. The roaring of the flames, the merciless attitude of its keepers. Why do you think we are afraid of the grave? Because of the body and the psychological. Think about it. It's a lonely place. I'll be crushed in there. My bones will be rendered to dust, and there will be the Munkar and Nakir with roads of fire. It's all very bodily. Can you not see that? And it's all psychologically then generated, and then we suffer internally. We are petrified. Now look at the result of not disengaging from the body in terms of spirituality. We want to find God to offer us safety in the grave. Can you see that? We don't want to find God because of God. God does not feature in our yearning for God. Our God is by the wayside. Help me when I'm in my grave. So it's not God that we want. It is the safety and security of ourselves or what we have presumed ourselves to be. Can you see that? I want to be freed from hell. Is it because it's a place that is at a distance from God? No. Well, if I be honest with myself, no. I don't even know God the way Imam Ali talks about God. I only want God and I only worship God because I don't want to burn there eternally. I don't want to be frightened. It's not a comfortable state. So you want to go to paradise to meet God? Well, I haven't thought of that yet. I want to go to paradise primarily because I know, I'm talking about myself, yes? Not about anybody else. I want to go to paradise primarily because the other place is not comfortable. I would rather be in paradise as opposed to hell. Now let's be honest with ourselves. Okay, fine. What if you're saved from the other place? Well, then obviously all the beautiful bounties of paradise and me rejoicing in paradise. Well, where is God? I haven't thought of Him as yet. I haven't thought of Him as yet. Now that's me being very, very transparent and extremely, extremely honest. So what I'm trying to say here is that our search for God is not the search for God. Our search for God is an insecure person's search for safety. A very deluded, forgive me for this phrase, a very deluded person's yearning for comfort. And that is my search for God. So that's why spirituality cannot work. You see, I know, I don't want to go to hell. None of us want to go to hell. Imam Ali did not want to go to hell. And when the sight of hell is presented to us, we are petrified. I can't deny that. It's terrible. When you experience a bit of hell, it's not nice. It's the worst place ever. Not only the physical fire, but the psychological state in hell. It's not, you cannot bear it. However, I do feel at the same time that if a soul does awaken to God, then by Allah, they can bear that hell. They can bear it. After thinking through it deeply and seeing a bit of what it entails, you know that if you embrace Allah fully, you can bear it, but you can't bear separation from God, and that's the fact. But that is something that we need to awaken to. So now look at our prayers. Allahumma a'tiq raqabati min an-nar, right? Free my neck from hell, which is a worthy dua, But maybe that dua was constructed for the initial levels of the wayfarers. That hell is not a nice place, not only because it burns you, but also because it's a place of displeasure of God. And displeasure of God means it's a distance from God. Maybe that dua was constructed as a first step into loving God and knowing God. It wasn't a dua that was meant to be the be-all and end-all of our yearning and search of God. Oh Allah, cause me to enter into paradise. That dua is one step to initiate us into the journey. That if you go to that paradise, then that is a step closer to finding yourself and finding your God. Now look at our duas. Free me from hell. Give me rizq. Give me sustenance. These duas and this spirituality was structured so that we may not forget God and become arrogant altogether. Yes? As Pharaoh said, Ana Rabbukumul A'la. Whose are all these springs? Whose are all these lands? So that we may not become filled with haughtiness and pride altogether. So these du'as were constructed, but these du'as have a deeper meaning within it. But the way we are approaching God is not a way in which a spiritual person approaches God. You see, it is our emotional states, our insecurities, our heaviness of heart, the malice inside there, the misgivings, the hurt, the pain. That is me. That is what I've made myself. And that is an alien state. And until and unless all of that goes, where there is no expectation, and I know it's difficult, but where there is no expectation left anymore, where there is no longer any joy in this world or in what the people say of this world, where there is no more pain left at loneliness and being abandoned. When that state comes, that is when the soul begins to breathe a breath of freedom. That is when Allah begins to appear. So in spirituality, and the way we want to go to Allah, the first thing is to remind ourselves that we are in an alien world. We are in a prison. The earth is not a prison. The hayatud dunya is the prison. The hayatud dunya is not the people in front of me. The hayatud dunya is what has become inside of me. That is hayatud dunya in there. It's an alien world in which I'm suffering and I am trapped. Let death be the door that opens this hayatud dunya and lets me out. Free me. Let death be the most pleasurable moment. Ali Salamullah said, Allahumma barik li fil maut. Oh Allah, bless me in my death. Because he knew death is the great escape. So this yearning in there for the dunya, living for the dunya, living for God through the dunya, finding a God in the context of the dunya is all hayatul dunya, and it's the biggest pretense and the biggest veil. Whatever I'm doing in the way of God, nothing is for God. Everything is for me. I just say to Allah, Allah, you know who I am, you know what I am, you know how weak I am, and you know my ego is filled with every action. But if you don't accept it, then who will? Then who will? The first thing is, we understand our state of pretentiousness, and we understand hayatud dunya. The second thing is, after that, to allow our minds to understand carefully that there is no agency that we have in this world. لَن يَخْلُقُونَ ذُبَابًا. They will not create a mosquito. وَإِنْ اجْتَمَعُوا. And even if they were all together, that is something that's not going to happen. There is no agency. In your defiance, you don't have agency, let alone in your obedience. Even in your defiance, you don't have any agency. Then you're deluded into thinking that in your obedience you have agency. When the limbs perform a good deed, say to Allah, thank you for making these limbs perform a good deed. Let me not claim any ownership of this good deed. For that is hayatul dunya in there. I know it's difficult to arrive at that point, but we need to constantly remind ourselves in order to rid ourselves of agency. But in the process of knowing that this is a pretentious world and all its preoccupations are pretentious, I used to think that this world is a dominion we need to conquer, the thinking world, bring it to rest. By Allah, I could not have been wrong. It is this world. My God, you can conquer the kingdom of Solomon. Conquering this here is so difficult. It is not possible unless Allah puts us to death, unless Allah crushes us and breaks us, tears us into pieces, constructs the tests that He constructs, and so subtly destroy us. By God, there will be moments in your life when you shall fall to your knees and you shall say, Oh Lord, the warrior comes to you as a beggar today. That is how he will break inside. And as he breaks, rejoice at the pain. As he reduces us to nothing, thank him, for he is claiming his own back. How he breaks his Hussein. How he breaks his Hussein. I did not think there could be a test beyond Abbas that breaks his back. Hussein could not imagine a test beyond his Abbas, beyond the chest of Akbar. Yet he is not broken. And then the lion is brought to his knees under the weight of a weightless child. It is here that Hussein is destroyed fully. It is here that the radiance appears upon his being. It is here that God claims his own. So we remind ourselves of our nothingness. Once we remind ourselves of our nothingness, then we take a small step in the dominion of God. Then we arrive at his threshold. And innocently, like children, we begin to tread the path. We have nothing to our claim. Everything is his. And this is where Mawla Ali cries out, إن أخذتني بجرمك إن أخذتني بجرمي أخذتك بعفوك. Oh Lord, I have nothing to my claim. If you seize me by my crimes, then I shall take you to account, or I shall hold you to your pardoning. If you bring me to account by my sins, then I shall hold you by your forgiveness. Oh Lord, I know I have nothing anymore. And I come to you in this state, but I come like an innocent child. And I implore you like an innocent child. This is the state of innocence that prevails upon the heart when we engage with God after that. What that does is, it opens the heart and it allows for the emergence of the beauty of God. Because at this point, God becomes the utmost beauty that we yearn for from within ourselves. But that beauty cannot arrive by us trying to emulate God. It can only arrive when we let go of ourselves and begin to flow with God. You know, we talk about morality, do the right thing, not for the sake of a reward, but for the rightness of that thing. This is not the way of spirituality. The way of spirituality is do the right thing because it is pleasing to the beloved. You know, when we talk about virtues, become truthful, become courageous, because it's a spiritual quality, I'll say no. Become virtuous because that is being God-like. That is allowing the emergence of God through us. The actions become spiritual actions. Morality becomes spiritual morality. Virtues become spiritual virtues. But not because of paradise, want of paradise. Not because it is the right thing to do, but because it is pleasing to my beloved. And I will not question my beloved. This, therefore, brings us into the folds of loving God. You see, the thing about loving God is that whenever we begin to love, there are two ways we can love. Either we can love through the ego, or we can love selflessly. It is depicted by the love of Abraham and Iblis. Iblis loved God, no doubt, and we know that. But Iblis loved God through his own ego, that he would not withstand anybody else being favored beyond him. And you know, you can sympathize with Iblis, La'natullah alayh, whatever he is, you can sympathize with him. And by the way, I'm just wondering this Ramadan, you know, I'm thinking very deeply. Iblis is locked up, right? Shaitan. And I'm truly finding that Shaitan is not locked up. So it is not the Shaitan that we think is the Shaitan. Really, Shaitan is something else altogether. We made the same mistake that Iblis has made, and as a result, we are here. You know that? The good sense we have is that we want to work up and not stay in that deepened state of arrogance. We really have made the same errors that he has made. Out, all of you, from here. That is our starting point before we descended here. Think about this carefully. The want of God should not be the demonic want of God. Even the demon wants God. But he wants God through his own self. The want of God ought to be the Abrahamic want of God. Jibreel comes to Ibrahim after a lengthy period of trials and tests and says, Ibrahim, God wishes to take a friend upon the earth. He wishes to befriend a person. Now I often pause at this point and I ask myself, if Jibreel comes to me and says, Arif, Allah wishes to take a friend, then my natural desire would be, Jibreel, tell me that I am his friend. But Abraham is told this. And Abraham says, Jibreel, lead me to the friend of God, that I may serve him. Jibreel smiles. He said, it is because of this that he has chosen you as his friend. When we step into the folds of love, there is no ugliness that remains. There is no evil that remains. There is no bad that remains. There is no judgment that remains within the soul. It's all gone. These are all the spectacles of my beloved. I love them all. When we arrive there, of course, we will still feel hurt. We will still feel grudges. We will still feel malice. But if we can persevere with the other state, the deeper state, then it becomes easier to let go of expectations, of malice, of grudges, of ill feelings, of love of this world, of the excessive joy that it brings, of the excessive grief that it brings. It becomes the amazing world. Oh Allah, it was yours. To you it has returned. How beautifully Hussein embraces Hur and says, not only I, but my God forgives you, O Hur. For Hussein no longer sees from the eyes of Hussein. He sees from the eyes of the divine. So once we begin to arrive at that state, there beautiful things begin to arise through us. Now here things begin to change totally. Generosity is no longer giving excessively. Generosity is the inner attitude. And it is manifest not in the act of giving only of wealth, but in the cordiality of conduct, in the ease of forgiveness, in the ease of making the other one happy. You will see a generous person is one who can forgive everything. A generous person is one who can readily serve us. A generous person is the one who gives up his seat and allows us to sit in his place instead. That is true generosity that comes through. Bravery comes not through being surrounded by legions, but by standing and speaking the truth, by standing our ground. Leniency comes through the soul. Softness comes within the heart. And that is when you begin to see, the emergence of the godly light. When a business transaction is lost, it may disturb for a moment, but the heart says, Oh Allah, it was your decree. Allow me to embrace. We get difficult people in our lives, but we say to them that you have come as gifts from Allah to me in order to allow me to grow. Here I want to make a little point. And there was a time when I could speak for 1 hour and a half without thinking. Ever since I've begun to think, I can't speak more than 10 minutes. Never mind. The love of the lovers of God. Why does this become so important at this point? You see, we talk about the wilayah of the Prophet and Imam Ali and the great prophets. Why is it so important at these final levels of us wanting to reach God? Because when we fall in love with the one totally in love with God, in their love we begin to lose ourselves. We don't only emulate them at face value and their actions. As we lose ourselves, we embrace their self into ourself. Because love is the agency of destruction. The lover wishes to annihilate his or herself within the object of love. And once a person dissolves in the object of love, they become like the beloved. Now, for us, God is very difficult to comprehend and imagine and understand. But we can understand one like ourselves. So we can understand Ali ibn Abi Talib. And once his godliness touches us deep within us, and once the lure takes us, and once we are pulled into him, what happens is we begin to lose ourselves. And as we lose ourselves, we emerge in his godly self. That is where love of the creatures of God, who are designated as the lovers of God, becomes a very potent thing within the soul. Look at this lover of God, Maysam. Imam Ali says to him, "How shall you find the day when this tree shall be made into a crucifix, and when you shall be nailed to it, and then your tongue shall be cut from your mouth, and a bridle shall be applied upon you?" He said, "O Ali, will it be on the truth and in your love?" He said, "Indeed." He said, "Then that day will be a pleasing day for me." Maysam would come, from what I have read, would water that tree and say to the tree, "As if you have been planted for me, and I have taken birth for you, for our eventual joining." When he was being crucified, he said, "My beloved told me that I'll be crucified on this tree." So the governor asked him, "What else did your beloved say?" He said, "He told me that you will cut my tongue from my mouth." He said, "I shall never do that. And your beloved will stand to be falsified." Maysam started praising Ali ibn Abi Talib and rebuking the Bani Umayyah. Inevitably, they had to cut his tongue. At that point, Maysam smiled. And he said, "But how can my beloved be false?" And he was bridled. Such is the effect of falling in love with such godly souls. Kufa loses its father. And indeed, if there is a father after the Prophet, it is Ali ibn Abi Talib. The Prophet said, "Ana wa Ali abawa hadhihi al-ummah." Me and Ali are the two fathers of this ummah. We read that Kufa is gripped by intense grief. There are sounds and cries raising into the air. Sahaba waiting outside the house of Ali ibn Abi Talib. The physician in the early parts of the night says, "He will not live. The poison has penetrated deep within his body. He shall not be with us for long." Imam Ali gathers his children around him and one by one bids them farewell. I read this emotional account in a book. Obviously, the authenticity cannot be verified. Ummul Baneen stood there with her little children. The Imam called Kulthum, Zainab, Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein. She looked, "Will he call my Abbas?" And he looked at Abbas and he said, "Abbas, come to me." And he took his little Abbas to his chest and then he wept slightly. Allah knows what went through the heart of this master of ours as he leaves us. He says, sons of Bani Hashim, bear this with patience and do not retaliate. Fear Allah and place your hope and trust in Allah. Then he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And then he said, wa alayka salam, as if to welcome the angel of death. He looked at everyone and his forehead poured of sweat. And then he looked and he said, وَلِمِثْلِ هَذَا فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. As he saw his abode, he said, for the likes of this, let the children of Adam contend with each other. The Imam shut his eyes and Zainab fell upon his chest. The cries arose and filled the heavens. Kufa was in a state of unimaginable grief. People were beating their heads and crying out, Wa Amir al-Mu'mineen. Imam Ali had bequeathed to his children to wash him, to shroud him, to pray his salah with 7 takbir, and then to escort his janazah to a place where it would stop and to lay him to rest at that place. In the early hours of the morning, they took the body outside Kufa, buried it. As they returned towards Kufa, within the ruins outside Kufa, they heard the pleas and the cries coming from behind the wall. They went there and they saw an old man who was crying out, where is my companion? Why has he abandoned me? Why does he not come and visit me? They said, oh man, who is your companion? He said, I do not see, so I cannot tell you about his features. But he would come every night and sit with me and feed me with his own hands. They said, and what else can you tell us about him? He has been gone for the last 2 nights. After feeding me, he would entertain me with his talk. And after entertaining me, he would sit against the wall and recline, breathe a deep sigh, and say, a poor man sits with another poor man. A destitute sits with another destitute. They said, oh man, that was our father and your Khalifa. He said, what has happened to him? He has been killed. We have just buried him and we are returning to our homes. He said, for the sake of your father, take me to him. They brought the old man to the grave. It is written, he cried out aloud and he lost his life. And Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein buried him next to Imam Ali. If this is the love that this old man has in his heart for Ali, then this Ali, his love can truly bring us to Allah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to learn from his example and to follow in his footstep and to love him and to love his dear brother, the Prophet Muhammad, and to accept these nights from us, forgive us our sins, and accept whatever little of goodness that we do. May he forgive all our marhumeen. Al-Fatiha.
Martyred in Prayer, a short poem by the poet Nuri Sardar. The victor of Badr, martyred within his prayer, in his final moments, the universe laments. I see the sun delayed ascent out of fear, scared to see Ali's state when on the earth it would appear. The night seems much longer than it would appear, begins to weep when a small sentence it would hear. Ali enters the mosque, within his eye a tear. Get up, Ibn Muljim, do not delay your prayer. Rise and carry out fate. To my Lord I'll prostrate. To his death he consents. The universe laments. I see fate and what's written all in division. To change what's written, I see trying creation. Cries the dust that would once yearn his prostration. My beloved, pray elsewhere, lest today you meet your doom. The moon attempts to prolong its circulation. How can I leave and rise tomorrow an orphan? Everything for him weeps, as fate upon him seeps, undying bereavements, the universe laments. I see that your name brings the call to prayer, its grace. You testify in one Lord, and fate you embrace. You cup your ears for prayer, cries the Kaaba you face. Do not pray there, O Haydar, return to your birthplace. The sound of thunder to the heavens I retrace. To bear the weight of Jibrail's call, the world's brace. Worlds towards Kufa tilt, to see if the blood's been spilt. All scents become death's scents, the universe laments. Your gaze fixed upon God, whilst to all you would turn. You yearn your Lord, whilst Ali everything would yearn. You prostrate to your Lord, while your cheeks, your tears burn. How will I meet my Lord is your only concern. In your fear, your final prostration you lengthen. We belong to God, and to God we shall return. You rise, the sword descends, its blade your skull bends, poison in its remnants, the universe laments. Jibrail's cry to beyond existence it soared, and the eyes of the uncreated the tears poured. Your head and your fast both broken by a poisoned sword. For breaking fast, apologetic to your Lord. Don't weep, O Haydar, the seven heavens applaud, and your throne in the highest heaven is assured. Let your calamities drown with all your worries. Your Lord heaven presents, the universe laments. Tears in eyes burst, just as veins in your head burst. No man thinks of water when for you is their thirst. The wielder of that sword, he prepares for the worst. Your Haydar Ali, no man would blame an outburst. The father of Hassan, killed within his fast. The martyr who offered his killer water first. Offer this man water, this is Haydar-e-Karrar. His soul your love torments, the universe laments. Anarchy in all of creation his death would create. Everything mourns Ali, every hour is late. I want you, O Ali's lover. I want you, O Ali's lover, to contemplate. You who the love of Ali would your life dictate. You who the love of Ali would your life dictate. Remember today when for Fajr you prostrate. Within that first prostration, Ali met his fate. Everything bids farewell to the beloved that fell. His martyrdom torments, the universe laments. His martyrdom torments, the universe laments. Salawat ala Muhammad wa alihi.
Right, the most saying. So for Martha Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Wa Muhammada, wa musibata, wa Muhammada, वाह मुसीबता सजदे में हुआ कत्ल मुर्तजा दीन का सितून आज गिर गया दीन का सितून आज गिर गया सजदे में हुआ कत्ल मुर्तजा वाह मुहम्मदा वाह मुसीबता सजदे में हुआ मुर्तजा ज़ैनब हज़ी गश में है पड़ी बीबियां सभी रोती है खड़ी ज़ैनब हज़ी गश में है पड़ी बीबियां सभी रोती है खड़ी वाह मुहम्मदा की उनमें है सदा सजदे में हुआ कत्ल मुर्तजा वाह मुहम्मदा वाह मुसीबता सजदे में हुआ कत्ल मुर्तजा ज़लज़ले में है कब्र मुस्तफा कांपती है आज लहद फातिमा ज़लज़ले में है कब्र मुस्तफा कांपती है आज लहद फातिमा अहले आसमां करते हैं बुका सजदे में हुआ कत्ल मुर्तजा वाह मुहम्मदा वाह मुसीबता सजदे में हाँ कत्ल मुर्तजा शोर शेन है आज जहान में आंधी है चली आज कूफे में शोर शेन है आज जहान में आंधी है चली आज कूफे में जिब्रील की आती है सदा सजदे में हुआ कत्ल मुर्तजा वाह मुहम्मदा वाह मुसीबता सजदे में हुआ कत्ल मुर्तजा दीन का सितून आज गिर गया सजदे में हुआ कत्ल मुर्तजा फातिहा
Please be seated. Just a couple of quick announcements before Maghrib, please. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Shaykh Arif for delivering the series of the 3 lectures on the Shahadat of Imam Ali alayhi salam. So thank you, Shaykh. Our next programs this week will be on Thursday and Friday only. Please note we won't have any program on Saturday as AMI is holding their big iftar. Program on Thursday will start at 7. And the talk will be The Door of Repentance by Dr. Munzila Raza. All the posters will be out, inshallah, tomorrow. There will also be spiritual night program on Thursday after Isha and time for learning program for children as well. Can I please request you all to register as quickly as possible as soon as the registration links come out tomorrow. It's very, very difficult for us to sort out catering when we have registration just a couple of hours before iftar. So please register at least 24 hours before the program. Thank you so much for your cooperation. As usual, your donations for Time for Change would be greatly appreciated. You can do so in the cash donation box. Approach me for card payments, and you can use the PayPal link or bank transfer as well. And please carry on donating generously towards Huiz Hussein Birmingham on the links that have been shared on the group. Can I please request you all to recite a Surah Fatiha for all those who are unwell, the marhumin whose name are on the screen, and all marhumin al-Fatiha.